Hey y'all, Poncho Knows. The subject today is overvaluation. Yeah, we talk about undervaluation. We always talk about pricing and the difficulty with pricing. But let's talk about the other extreme, and that's overpricing. You know what? I have more respect for the overpricer than I do for the one that doesn't have value. Okay? Because the overpricer, they're going to have this reality check where folk ain't going to buy their stuff. Okay? Overpricing means, oh, I'm harboring this. This is for me. It's not for you. Oh, my value is here. Okay, I'm dealing with a new client right now, and every last one of her pieces is $20,000. But she hasn't ever really shown her work, and she's had a limited amount of people that she's shown her work to. And I simply replied to her, "Your work feels like it's not available." And she says, "Well, how do you say that?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking at the work. I'm looking at how you deal with your work. It looks all staged for your enjoyment and your family's enjoyment, but the prices show me you're not ready to release them." Now, this is not a conversation about her pricing because there are people whose work has evolved to whatever pricing. Hell, my work may seem severely underpriced for where I am in my career. That's a relative decision. But overpricing comes when you're in an environment, you've not done research, you're just coming up with a number. Be careful with that. I'm also watching artists who are 2 years, 3 years in, looking at an artist that's 10 to 15 years in. You see their work a certain size, certain look. You say, I'm going to adapt that price. That's overpricing because you haven't gone through the journey they've gone through with their work. So be careful with overpricing. If someone is not giving your work time, or they say to you this line, "Oh, it looks like it's worth every penny," then they already saying to you, "Your ass is crazy." And so it's time to take inventory. If you got something that's that high, then what's going to happen when you got, what do you have that's affordable? And so the instance I told you where everything was $20,000 with this one client or this one mentee, I said, "Well, what do you have this $700 or $1,000? Am I trying to dictate a value for her? No, but I also want her to have the, you got to have the validation of a sale too. And so if you make it approachable, because most people that buy my work are mom pop people that have a little bit of disposable income. It's not the 1% that buy my work. And I've sold pieces upwards of $45,000 to $60,000. I know what that looks like. But I also know that the bulk of the people who bought my work look like you and me, and they just love it and want it in their home. Okay? So keep that in mind as we start talking about accessibility. Is $20,000 per piece accessible to the masses? No, it's not. Will they still look and enjoy? Yes. Will they still murmur under their breath? Yes. Are you going to be in line with other artists when you show? No. When you go to a show and it's a certain person and they got to do insurance for your work, and now you got 10 pieces at $20,000 and now you've taken them over the threshold of their insurance, is that an issue? Yes. We recently had a piece that showed up at one of our shows. It was worth $7 million. And yes, I said, hey, our artists should charge what they want. But also, that was a liable piece. It could fall off the wall. Somebody could puncture it. Anything could happen, and we would be liable for $7 million. So really, realistically, we should not have accepted that $7 million piece. So this is about value, but this is also about overpricing your work. As an artist, you got to figure out where you are in your career to determine if those prices are in line. And most of all, to make sure your work is accessible to the people you really want to be accessible to. Poncho Knows. Peace.